Now different projects use different wood, and some wood has more like grooves in it versus being smooth. And so if we've got some wood that's got some grooves in it, then we're going to have this additional step of putting a layer of Mod Podge over your stencil before you actually paint. And that helps fill in the grooves in the wood so that you don't have paint bleeding underneath your stencil. So if you're doing other projects from us that don't call for this Mod Podge step, or maybe you're doing a project with a friend, each one a different project, and hers calls for Mod Podge and yours doesn't, that's not because your step is missing, it's just because your particular wood or her particular wood does not require the Mod Podge because it's a smooth wood versus one that's got some grooves in it. So when we're going to do the Mod Podge step, you're going to dip your foam sponge into the Mod Podge, and then you're going to dab up and down over the stencil. And you want to do a thin layer of Mod Podge. We don't want it real thick. So when you first go, there'll be a lot of Mod Podge on your brush, and you keep dabbing up and down to kind of spread it around. And then we might need a little bit more depending on how big your stencil is. And it's okay to get it on the actual stencil itself, because really what we're doing is the real area that we're really concerned about is just the edge of the stencil. So along this letter and this edge here, we were wanting to create a seal basically and fill in the grooves that are kind of running in the wood. And so while we don't really care about this exact center section right here, you just kind of can't help but get it just because of the size of the sponge. But we're just going to dab up and down. You want to dab up and down, not brushing side to side, not doing this, but dabbing up and down until you have a thin layer. So you can see this is about what it looks like. You don't want it to look super wet and thick. And like I said, we're just more concerned about the edges, so it's going to create that seal between the groove and the stencil so that we don't have paint that's going to bleed underneath. So with your stencil, you would just go ahead and finish out the rest of the stencil with the Mod Podge and get that all set. Before you begin painting in the next step, you'll want to make sure that the Mod Podge dries first. You'll know it's dry when it turns clear.